We have theme music. This is awesome. All right. Hi. Hello. Welcome to the Rough Science Workshop. My name's Sean. And welcome to wherever you are. Hopefully things are going fine for where you are currently. Look, even if you're in lockdown, even if you're able to walk outside and check out the blue sky, thank you for coming along here today. Today, we are going to be doing day 2 of Slime Week. Yay! Slime is fun, and we're going to be looking at it because slime is fun, but it's also really interesting in the way that it tells us what's happening in things like chemistry and so on. But before we get started, I want to think about this word science. Whenever I start, I always like to think, what does the word science actually mean? What does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? To me, science is a way of answering questions. That's basically it. It's a procedure by which we can use to answer questions. And it's actually quite an accurate way to answer questions. Today, what we're going to be doing is looking at a different kind of slime than we did yesterday. So yesterday we looked at the classic oobleck, which was cornflower slime. Still got it over here. Hasn't gone moldy yet. And this stuff, it has a really interesting sort of property in that it kind of flows when you move it around slowly. But if you move it quick, it starts to act like a solid and snaps. The slime that we're going to be looking at today is going to have a different sort of property. So unlike our cornflower slime, this one is going to be quite gooey and a bit more slimy. So what we're going to be doing is looking at psyllium slime. What's psyllium? Well, I'll tell you what, there's one way you can find psyllium. You can find it in a product called Metamucil. Here in Australia, if you go out to shops, get yourself some Metamucil. Metamucil is got lots and lots of psyllium in it, and we can use that to turn into a slime. Or, if you can go to a health food shop, you can actually get something called Psyllium Husk. Let's have a closer look at those so we can see their titles. So, Psyllium Husk over here, you can buy from a health food shop, sometimes in the health aisle in your supermarket, or Metamucil over on this side. And basically, they're both used for the same thing, which is, if you're constipated, you can use it to get unconstipated. But we can also use it to make slime. So this is how we're going to do it. We're going to start by trying out the Metamucil, and then we'll try the psyllium after that. So the first thing we need is some sort of thing to mix it in. So I'm going to use one of these containers here. Here we go. I'll use this one. And into this, we're going to mix a few things into it. So first of all, let's get down close to it so we can see how it's all going to happen. We're going to get, first of all, 1 tablespoon of our Metamucil. So, just like that. Now, to that, we're going to add some water, about 1 cup's worth. So, 1 cup of water, and just pour it in. Now, the Metamucil comes with artificial flavors and colorings, so it comes out already as a nice, brilliant orange, as it happens to be orange flavored. And then you can give it a mix. And one of the things that you'll notice about it as you mix it around, making sure you get all the dry bits out of the corners and so on, is that the water starts to act a little bit like a gel. And the idea is, medically speaking, what people do is if they're constipated, they can drink this down, and it helps to basically bind all of their feces together so it all goes out. I love talking about feces on an open channel. Okay, back up here. So, okay, we've got to make sure this has got a good mix. In fact, sometimes you end up with a few clods and lumps inside there. So we need something to give it a good mix. So we need to find something that we could use to mix this perhaps and... Ow, 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 ow. Oh, here we go. A bar mix. If you haven't got a bar mix, just mixing it with a fork will be fine. And so let's have a look at our final mixture here. Okay, if we get down close to it, let's pour it back into this cup over here. And if I pour one from the other, you'll see, well, it just kind of looks like a funny sort of drink. Doesn't look particularly slimy at all. I mean, it's kind of thick, but it's not really like a slime. And if you stuck your fingers in that, it'll just get wet. So, what we need to do now to make anything like this nice and a bit more interesting, we need to add heat. So I need something that we can use to add heat. If I've got something around here that we could use that... Ow! Jeez! Ow! God damn it! We need to tidy up around here. Oh no. There we are. That'll be perfect. Okay, so put it into the microwave. What we're going to do is we're going to set it going for about 5 minutes. Now, a couple of things about it as it goes. Number one, once it's done, it's going to be insanely hot. So if you're going to be pulling it out of the microwave, make sure you use something to protect your hands, like a tea towel or some kind of oven mitt. Number two thing is that it may end up making a mess inside the microwave. So just be aware that you might have to wipe up the plate afterwards. While we're waiting, that's the Metamucil sign. We're going to try this again, but this time we're going to use psyllium. So exactly the same steps as before. So let's get down close and have a close look. Step number one. First of all, we need something to mix it in. We'll use this jug here. Step number two, we need about 1 tablespoon of the psyllium husk. Now the psyllium in psyllium husk is a type of grain or a type of seed. And when it's been, you have the husk, the outside of it taken off. That's what provides the psyllium husk in this packet. Interestingly, the husk is a lot more like, it looks a bit like coconut flakes. It's fairly large compared to the Metamucil. The Metamucil is more like a powder, fine powder. So there's the Metamucil there. Whereas this stuff is, like I said, it's a little bit more like coconut flakes. Alright, like I said, same deal as before, we need 1 cup of water. So let's get 1 cup of water. And mix it in. And give it a good mix. And give it a really good mix. Like I said, if you happen to have a bar mix, helps to take out all of those little lumps and so on. Now, at this point, you'll need to pop it back into the microwave. But the microwave's currently in use right at the moment. It's got another 2 minutes to go for this one. but those people who have been looking at it close up, you may have seen that quite a lot of activity is going on inside there. So right now, I think what we'll do is we'll stop our microwave and see what's going on inside. So, all right, so it's boiled over a little bit, and like I said, the steam that's coming out of here means that this is incredibly hot. So if you are going to be doing this at home, make sure you do have one of the grown-ups around the house to help you out, because this is going to be incredibly hot. Now this slime needs the heat to be able to start curing and acting. And this has started to become a lot more slime-like. Look at that. Let's have a close look. Splat. But like I said, incredibly hot right at this moment. Well, you might just leave that over there to cool down. In fact, I'll pour out all of this so that it has a chance to cool down on the cooler table. Psyllium slime. Alright, while we're still focused on the microwave here, I'm going to get our other Psyllium Husk and pop it in here and see what the difference is between these two slimes. So, okay. So while we're waiting for that to cool down and we're waiting for this one to heat up, what's actually going on with this stuff? How does this stuff actually work? Well, it's a tricky one. The other day, when we were looking at the cornflower slime works because the stuff that makes up the cornflower it's not dissolved in the water. It kind of lets the water flow through it. So if we move it slowly, it starts to act like a liquid because that water is being allowed to push between it. But as soon as we move it fast, all of those pieces kind of lock together, push the water out, and it starts to act like a solid. And that's this one. But this is more like a gel. It's like something that you'd find in a Ghostbusters toy from the 1980s. Now, what I've found online is not a lot. I haven't been able to find a direct explanation, but it has something to do with the active thing that's inside this, which is something called mucilage. Inside the Psyllium Husk, there's this protein, this thing called mucilage, which is quite sticky. This stuff, if you went down and looked at the atoms, you'd see these kind of funny little fingers sticking out like this. And when we mix it together in the water, they're just flowing around in with the water. Kind of every now and then they'll grab onto each other like this, which is why the water gets a little bit thicker. So they're grabbing onto each other. But when we put it into a microwave or onto a stove and heat it up, these arms start to stick to one another permanently. And so what we end up with is, instead of just something that acts like a gel like this and sticking to each other, it's actually clinging to each other more permanently. Alright, that was our Metamucil one. Let's check out the Psyllium Husk. Same deal as before. Quite hot stuff. And we're done with our microwave, so let's move it to one side. Okay, now let's have a close look at this stuff. I might give it a little mix up first so you can see there. Possibly could have done with a little bit longer in the microwave. So if you try this out at home, try doing it for different amounts of times in the microwave and see what happens. It's kind of a bit slimy. I'll try pouring some out. Yeah, it's still acting a little bit more like a fluid. But here's one I prepared earlier. So, great big slimy mess. Splat. So like I said, imagine this as those tiny, tiny little molecules, kind of like fingers, all kind of clinging onto one another and linking up when they get hot. And so you end up with this great big stretchy slimy mess. Here's our Metamucil now cool enough to move around. Nice big stretchy stuff. Now if we blow on it, maybe not. I was hoping to see if I could get bubbles out of it, but that's a little tricky. That is a level 2 experiment, that one. Here's another one that I prepared earlier. It's a little cooler and easier to handle. And if we stretch it apart like this, I find that this one works a little bit better, and it's possibly because that there is some artificial sugars in here as well, which give it a little bit more stuff to cling on to. Now, usually at this part, we switch over to microscope time. So, we need something to look at under the microscope. Oh, I have an idea. What about this? Okay, let's have a look at this stuff under the microscope and see what we can see. What I'd like to do is I want to look under the microscope using the Psyllium Husk as well as the Metamucil. So what I'll do is I'll make a couple of piles just in front of me here. A little pile of Metamucil, just there. And a little pile of the Psyllium Husk over on this side. Yummy. Now, here's our microscope here. Still covered with corn flour from yesterday. Also from yesterday, we used our microscope and we actually discovered something eating my geraniums, a little caterpillar. If anyone can identify that caterpillar, be sure to drop us a line. I'd like to know what sort of caterpillar it was. Okay, first of all, let's test out our microscope, make sure it's working properly. So let's do it like I usually do on one of my fingers. And we can see, oh, there it is. There's my my fingerprint. Along with stuff. Yes, I need to wash my hands after this. You can see all kinds of stuff. All right, let's come over here first to the Metamucil and have a closer look at it. And so yeah, the Metamucil is made up of lots of grains of different stuff. The ingredients in Metamucil, well, it says on the outside of the packet, psyllium husk powder, aspartame, which is a kind of artificial sweetener, citric acid, sunset yellow, which is the colouring, and something called maltodextrin. I have no idea what that is. Artificial and natural orange flavour. Okay. That is a close-up of our Metamucil. What I want to do is see what happens when we add a few drops of water. So let's get it into a place where you can see. There's the end of my pipette. Just let's get it into focus. There we are. There's my pipette. And I'm going to push some water out the end and we'll see what happens to the powder when the water hits it. Bloop. So you can see it starting to dissolve. It's interesting, you can see of all of that powder in front of us there, you can see the bits which are the artificial colouring because they're kind of creating that orange colour in little spots. But if you had this in a glass and started mixing it, it would just mix through the whole thing. But initially, there we go. Now, I mentioned before about this stuff at a molecular level starting to grab hold of each other. Now, we're not going to be able to see it in our microscope. But you can see as I try to mix it around, this whole blob has actually started to cling to itself now that it's wet. I've got the end of a fork here trying to move it around, and it's just moving this whole thing. Alright, that's the Metamucil powder and the water. But what about the slime itself? Well, let's bring a piece of it over here. Let's see if we can have a close look at it. There. Well, there's not a lot to look at this scale. You can just see that it's a great big mass of stuff. But once it's mixed, and then you've got the heat that's been applied to it, you can see that it's turned it into this great big jelly-like substance. Alright, let's go over to the Psyllium Husk. Now, like I said, this stuff is found in health food shops. So basically this is the pure psyllium husk that you get in the Metamucil before it's been all refined and ground up. So you can see it's like great big flakes with other stuff in between. Alright, same deal. Let's try adding a little bit of water to it. So let's get it in focus. There we are. And here's my pipette with water. Let's try adding. Whoa. Come back. Come back. There we go. So it mixes a little differently to the Metamucil. Even though it's got the same protein in it, this mucilage, it mixes and acts a little differently. For a start, it's not going to have all those artificial flavors and colorings inside it. It's going to probably taste pretty bland. But you can see that it really wants to stick to my fork as I move it around. You can see it's sticking to itself. And that's just with a little bit of water. Now, we go and we hit it with a bit of heat and it starts to turn into our slime. So let's get some of that Psyllium Husk slime a little closer. Splat. And again, like the other one, like the Metamucil slime, not a lot to look at it, except there is, every now and then, little bits of that husk sort of trapped inside it. And all of that mucilage seems to have bound to each other to form this great big thick gel-like substance. Alright, and that is our two slimes. Okay, that is day 2 of slime week. So day 1, we made our cornflower slime. Day 2, we have our psyllium slime. Day 3, we are going to make what I like to call the best slime in the world. It is some of my favorite slime to make. It's very easy to make, and we're going to be doing it tomorrow, 4:30 Australian Eastern Standard Time, right here at the Rough Science Workshop. So be sure to come along and check that out. We have a website, roughscience.net, where you can find contact details if you want to drop me a line, tell me things that you'd like to see in the Rough Science Workshop. But otherwise, that brings us to an end of another one for today. And right now, we're going to turn that awesome theme music. Now that we have theme music at last, yes, theme music that I can dance out to. Yeah, grooving away to the new theme music. Come back and see us soon.